Okay, just get this workshop started then. So welcome everybody to the Intro to Python Beginner Workshop. And this is an introduction to programming. So if you've never coded before, Python is a really great place to start off just because of how easy to learn it is. And this is a coding workshop. So you probably came here to learn how to code, but here's my question to you. What is Python? And that's something that we'll go over. And we're also going to talk about why we're going to learn Python. And we're going to get started by installing Python and some other stuff that will be required for this workshop. And then I'm going to go over how to code in Python. So I'm going to go over variables, variable types, certain functions, how to construct your own functions. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to do a demo and then a final project. And for the conclusion, I'm just going to share some extra resources and stuff like that. But moving on to the first question. So what is Python? It's just a programming language, right? It's coding shop, so it's a programming language. So Python is a high-level, interpreted, general-purpose programming language. And what does that mean? So let's begin with what a programming language is. A programming language is a set of rules that converts human-readable inputs to a set of programs that a computer can understand and execute. So examples of programming languages are C, C++, C#, so the entire C family, Java, JavaScript, Python, Lua, Perl, Kotlin, Swift, and there's so many other more programming languages, but a lot of them are very difficult to learn, especially C. So we're going to start with something easy like Python. And the reason that Python is very easy is because it's a high-level language. So a high-level language just means that there's a strong level of abstraction, meaning that it leans much more towards the human understandable aspect than the computer understandable aspect. So other high-level languages include Java, JavaScript, C#, and let's just give examples of other types of languages. There's what we call middle-level languages like C++ or C, and also low-level languages like assembly or binary, which is the lowest level. And note that these definitions actually change quite often as our understanding of the development of programming languages changes. For instance, C used to be a high-level programming language, but now it's a middle or low-level programming language. Python is also interpreted. So the code being interpreted just means that it's not compiled before runtime. It's compiled during runtime. For languages like C, you would actually have to run a separate command to convert the code into a computer readable program called an executable before running it. However, Python is compiled during runtime. So that means you can run the code directly with Python and the name of the file, and then it'll actually just make the computer understand that code right away and then run it all in one command. And it is also a general purpose programming language. And this one's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Python can be used for a variety of different purposes, such as game development, web development, data science, AI, machine learning, application development, and almost anything you can think of, really. So as opposed to something like JavaScript, which is used almost exclusively for web development, or SQL, which is used specifically for managing relational databases, Python is just this really powerful tool that allows us to do a lot of things with it. And I'm just going to take a look at the chat right now, so no questions. But we named like a lot of different high-level programming languages, but why specifically start with Python? Why does everyone recommend me to learn Python first? Well, the reason is because it's really easy to learn. The syntax is extremely similar to English. And it's also really fast to learn because it's highly abstracted. It's very intuitive. And Python is designed with the philosophy of code readability. So it's really easy to understand and it's hardly confusing at all. And although like people who are a fan of brackets or who are not fans of significant indentation may not agree, the syntax is, again, is very simple. The syntax is just the structure of a language. So even non-programming languages have syntax. In English, you would call like punctuation or conjugation syntax. And in this aspect, Python is, again, much more similar to English than any other programming language. And also, Python is extremely useful and applicable. It allows you to build simple applications really, really fast. It's used in many different fields. And if you're learning a programming language, why learn something that's overly specific? Why limit yourself when you can learn Python, which allows you to do many, many different things? It's just something that allows you to branch out really, really easily, which is something that I really admire about Python. But now that I've convinced you why Python is a really good beginner language to learn, let's go over how to install it. Yes, and as Anthony says, Python is good to begin and experiment with, especially because how easy it is. And I'll actually show you demonstrations later on. And it really just goes to show how quickly you can start coding with Python. But let's go on. And how do I install Python on my computer, or how do I even run Python in general? Yeah, I still see my screen. If somebody can just confirm. Yes, so we can see the Google page, correct? Okay, cool. Hopefully this doesn't just bounce me back again like it did. Okay, so there's two things that you will want to install during this workshop, and I'm going to run you through it. And it's going to be quite quick if your computer can install things really fast. And if you cannot install in time, or you just need a quick code editor and cannot or don't want to install it, you can also use Replit. So you can just Google Replit, and then you can go on here. You can say start coding. And if you log in, let's just say that I log in with my email. You can just start, create a REPL, and you can click Python. It'll give you an automatic environment online, which is really easy. But the option that I'm going to go for is I'm going to install something called Visual Studio Code, which is my preferred code editor, or as it's known as an IDE, an integrated development environment. And how I'm just going to do that is I'm just going to go search up Visual Studio Code. And here it is. It's made by Microsoft. So, it's pretty testable. And you would just click download for Windows. And it will install the setup. Is everyone following along right now? Just make sure. Yep. Cool. And you would just click on this, and it will give you this very long license agreement. You can read over it if you want, but this is published from Microsoft, so again, it's trustable. And I would accept the agreement. I'll go next, and then select additional tasks. So of course, you would want a desktop icon and add to path. That is correct. You would want that. So you would also basically check all of this. You would click next, and then here you would click install. So I already have this. I already have Visual Studio Code installed right here. So I'm not going to click this install, but you can go ahead and just click it, and it will create an icon on the desktop, and I will actually teach you how to use it later on. But I'll just give you some time to do that right now. Is everybody clear on that, hopefully? Give me a thumbs up or just type yes in the chat if that is the case for you. Oh, you already have VS Code and Python installed. Cool. That is good. But as we mentioned, we also have to install. Oh God, this is weird. something bugged out. But if you want to install Python, what we would just do is you just search up Python, and then you'd find python.org. And you go to downloads, and you would look at, what your system is. So I'm using Windows. I would just click Windows. I would click latest Python free release. This is newest version of Python, so that's what we would have to download. And here you would find files, Windows installer. I'm going to choose the 64-bit one, and I'm going to click it. It's going to be the same process. I'm going to open it up. So here, I currently already have Python installed, so I can't install it again. But I'm actually just going to uninstall it just to show you guys the process of installing it again. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but hopefully it's going to be worth it, because there are some settings that you do want to check and some settings that you do not want to check. And you just want to make sure that you've gotten everything correctly, or else you might not be able to follow along quite easily. So if I just go back to downloads again, and I can click Python, and I'll just install again. So I could install now. Actually, just give me a second. Did I check the option? Yeah, so that was actually very hasty. So before you click that, you would actually want to add Python 3.10 to path. And this will just ensure that you're allowed to run Python as a command. You can also go in and customize the installation, but I'm personally not going to do that. So I'm just going to check this, click install now, and then it's just going to start installing. Oh no, that's not good. It failed. Huh. Let's try that again. It's going to take a little bit of time, but setup was successful, and this will just tell you that you have successfully run Python. Any questions for now? If not, I'll just move on to the next step. Nope, I don't see any questions in the chat, so let's just quickly move on. And now that we have installed both Visual Studio Code as well as Python, we can start programming. So here is my Python demo. And actually, when you log into Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown. So this is going to be the file explorer. This is where you can see all your files. This is where you edit the code. And here are your extensions. Pretty sure this isn't an actual new, this isn't a new folder. So I'm going to remove this from the list. I'm going to try to start this again. Yeah, so if you just started, you might actually see something a little bit different. It's going to ask you for your workspace. And I'm just going to say new. Just check, actually. Yeah, so it's actually going to look like this. And you'll see that the file explorer isn't quite there. And you could either create your own folder. So I'm going to go into my programs. I'm going to say, okay, curious. And I can just create a folder here. I'm going to name it Python demo. I'm going to drag it over here into Visual Studio Code. And that's just going to open that folder and just make it my workspace. And right before we start coding with Python, you would also want to go to extensions, search up Python. And there is a extension for it. So this basically just allows better syntax highlighting and just more functions for Python. So you would want to install that really quickly. So is everybody set up? Just want to make sure. Yep. Cool. And if anyone is not, just type, if anyone needs more time, just say that I need more time, and then I'll just wait for everybody a little bit. Okay, I don't see anyone saying that they need more time, so I'll just continue on. But before we actually start programming, let's talk about coding in Python. So here is some time for a pretty lengthy explanation, I guess, about Python. And it's also going to include a demo afterwards. So here's how Python works. You would write your Python in .py files. So you know how sometimes when you create like a Microsoft Word file and it ends in .doc, like .doc, or sometimes when you create a PowerPoint, it ends in .ppt. This is very similar. It stores you should store your code in a .py file. So it's just a Python file. And the cool thing about Python is you don't need to start off with any weird wrappers. You don't have to start off declaring any classes. If you're written in Java, everything is object oriented, and you just to write hello world into the console, you need a bunch of other stuff. Python does not need that. You can just start writing code directly from the file, just directly into the file. And Python uses significant indentation. And what this means is if you have a space at the start of a line, Python actually cares about that. It cares about whether you use space or tab at the start of a line, because that's how it understands the levels of your language. So if you have something that's in a function or in an if statement, you would represent that by putting an indentation before the line that you're writing. And something else about Python is that semicolons are not required. And I'm pretty sure if you write semicolons in something in VS Code, it'll actually highlight it as red just to tell you that it's not required. And if you code it in something like C, you're going to know that forgetting semicolons is a very, very common mistake. But since you don't have that in Python, you can't make that mistake, which is pretty good, to be honest, and just saves you a lot of trouble as a beginner. So let's just start off with the basics of a programming language. So in a programming language, there are things known as variables. And what variables are is basically you could store a value in your computer. Like you could store the value 3, and then you could give that value a name. So let's just say I want a variable called apple amount. And then when I say there's 3 apples, I can just say apple amount equals 3. And as you can see in the example here, it is done with the variable name equals the value. And in Python, possible variable names is anything that includes characters from A to Z, either uppercase or lowercase, anything from 0 to 9, and also underscore. So anything like that is a valid variable name. So here we can see variable name 01, and that is a valid variable name. And in my understanding, Python uses snake case, which is if you want to name a variable, which is multiple words, you would actually separate those words with an underscore. And most variables in Python are global, meaning that the values of those variables are shared across the entire document as you run it. And there's also ways to define multiple variables at once, where I'll show you later in the demo. And there's also different types of variables. So you could have things like numbers, you could have integers, floats. You could also have strings, which are basically just a chain of characters, such as words, sentences, or stuff like that. And there's also Boolean expressions, which is Boolean just means true or false. And it's just a good way to store a condition. And that I'm going to quickly show you in this demonstration right now. So it is time for a demo time. So what you will do is you will go in here, you would create a file, let's just say demo.py, and this will be my Python file. And is everyone following along right now? Just make sure. Does everyone understand where I'm going with this? Yes, yes, yes. Because hopefully it's fairly easy. And okay, so let's just try to define a variable. So I could define a variable as number equals 2. So here, the variable of number is mapped to the value of 2. And I could also say, I could also call this sentence. And I'm actually going to make the sentence a string because I want it to be a chain of characters. So what I can actually do here is how you would denote a string is you would either use something that is surrounded by double quotes or something that is surrounded by single quotes or apostrophes, if you like to call it that. But I personally like to use double quotes, so I can say the sentence is, hello, my name is Leo. And then that would just be my sentence. And if you want to save, just press Control S and that will save your code. And then you also have Boolean expressions. So you could have a variable, let's just say it's is my name Leo. And then I could set that as the value, and I could set that as true. And just notice that in Python, Boolean values actually begin with capital letters. So here, true begins with a capital T, and false is with a capital F. And this is how you create variables. And of course, if you could just define variables and you couldn't do anything with them, that would be pretty useless, right? So you can also have operations on these variables. So let's just say having a number, instead of just saying 2, I could also do 2 plus 3, or 2 divided by 3, or 2 times 3, or 2 minus 1, and things like that. And I could also do that with other variables. So I could say that number 2, which is my second number, equals number divided by 2. So since here, the value of number is 2, then for number 2, the value would just be 2 divided by 2. And of course, you could also redefine variables. So now I want, my number to be 3 instead. So I could say number equals 3. And that would change the value of that variable. And the thing about Boolean expressions is that, well, you don't just have to say true or false. There are certain things that return true or false. So I could say, my name Leo? And I could say, if 1 is larger than 2, then my name is Leo. And clearly 1 is larger than 2 is a false statement. So for is my name Leo, it actually gave the value of false. But perhaps this would be better if you could actually see what's going on and running the code instead of just talking about it. So I'm going to introduce to you a function right now, and it will be called the print function. So what the print function does is basically, when you run the .py file, it will print a certain value into the console. And let's just say that my number, I'm going to give it a value of 133, for instance. And I could just print the number. So I'll print number. And if I can just click terminal, I click new terminal. And then and since I am in this folder already, I can run Python demo.py. And and in the console, it prints 133. And obviously, I don't just need to do this with numbers. I could also do this with strings. So for string, I could say, let's just see here. I'm going to say that name equals Leo. And I could print the value of name. And what do you think this will say if I just print it? I'm just going to look for some answers in the chat. What will this code print? Yes, that is a good point. A variable cannot start with a number. And it also cannot be reserved. So obviously you can't call something class. That is not good. So thank you, Anthony, for adding that. Yeah, so this was just print Leo. And the same goes, and you don't actually have to like just use a variable all the time. You could also say, I could also print 1 plus 2, and that's going to print 3. And I could also print, let's say, Leo is Leo equal to Leo. And the answer will be no, because the capitalization is different. So then, since we already know a little bit of this interaction, let's just talk a little bit more about how you can interact with numbers, strings, and Boolean expressions. So as I said with numbers, there are a lot of operations that you can do on them. So I'm going to introduce you to 5 operations. So let's just do 5 and 2. So there's a plus operator. So you can just add 2 numbers together. You can subtract 2 numbers. You can multiply 2 numbers. You can divide 2 numbers. And there's also something that we often use, which is the modulus, which just means if I divide 2 by 5, the modulus operator is going to give us the remainder. So 2 divided by 5 equals 2 with a remainder of 1. And this is what we will see if I save the code, actually. And this is what I will see here. And with Boolean expressions, again, there's common statements, like I could do 2 is greater than 1, 1 is greater than 2, that will return false. 1 is less than 2, that will return true. 1 is greater than or equal to 2. In this case, it would return false. There's also less than or equal to 2, which will return true. There's also is 1 equal to 2. And here you would actually notice that instead of using 1 equal sign, we actually use 2. And the reason behind that is if you just use 1 equal sign, the language will interpret that as I'm assigning a value of 2 to 1. So if we just, let's say we have a variable. So we assign values using a single equal sign. So we don't want to do that when we're comparing 2 things. So here we use 2 equal signs. And what if I wanted to say that 1 is not equal to 2? Is 1 not equal to 2? Well, there's 2 ways you're going to be able to do it. So you're also going to be able to do the not equals operator with a exclamation mark before the equal sign. So it's going to be exclamation mark and an equal sign. This just means 1 is not equal to 2. Something else that we can do is we can actually add a not in front of 1 equals 2. So not just basically means if it's true, not turns into a false. And if it's false, not turns the value into a true. So here we can see, well, is 1 not equal to 2? And the answer is yes, it's not equal to 2. And of course, there are also other things that you would normally see in English, such as and. So if I say if, let's just say, I'm going to call this number is 1. So if number equals 2, and let's just say name, let's just say the name is Leo, and that the name is also equal to Leo, what do you guys think this will print? So the condition is that number is equal to 2 and the name is Leo. Yep, it will print false because evidently number is not equal to 2. But there's another operator that we call OR. And instead of having it satisfy all the conditions, what it just means is as long as one of the conditions is satisfied, as long as one thing returns true, the entire operation will return true. So here, it's going to print true if number is equal to 2 or if the name is equal to Leo. So what do you think this will print now? Yep. And as everyone expects, if we click that, wait, I didn't save the file. This is so sad. The answer will be true. Well, that's some pretty limited user interaction, I suppose. But now that we know that there are things that we can play around with, let's build a very, very simple application. So there's a function in Python that is known as input. And what input does is that means you can take in a prompt. So let's just say the prompt is, what is your name? And I'm actually going to use a \n, so that just means new line. So when it prints something, when it prints the prompt inside the terminal, it also just adds a new line to the end and actually returns a value. So I can say that the name is input, what is your name? And it will say print name equals to Leo. So basically what it means is when it runs this function, it will print what is your name, and then it will wait for your response in the terminal. And you can type in the response by typing in whatever and clicking enter, and then it'll store what you typed in into the variable of name. And then here it'll just print if the name is equal to Leo. So if we just run that, it'll ask for what is your name, and if I write Leo, it'll print true because the value of the name variable was Leo. But if I print something different, like if I write, oh shoot, oh that's pip, what is your name? And I write my name is Anthony, then obviously that will be false. But we can do something that is much, much, much beyond just comparing different things, printing simple values. You can also add strings together. And this is something that you can do in many different languages. So you can actually do hello space, and then we're going to add the name to the end. So that means when I take in the input, I get the value of name. And when I print it, I'm going to say hello space. And then I'm going to add whatever the value of name is to the end of it. So here, let's just say I run this again. What is your name? Leo. It will say hello, Leo. And something really funny about Python is that you can actually multiply strings by a number. So I'm pretty sure if I multiply the value of name by 3, it will say hello, Leo, Leo, Leo. Yeah. So this is just something that's really funny that you can do in Python that you usually can't do in other languages. So, just have fun with it. And there's also other things that we can do with strings. For instance, if I just wanted the first character of the name, I could do name, and then I could do square brackets. And then in most programming languages, when you want to count, you actually start from 0. So let's just say the word Leo, the name Leo, right? So the first character would be the 0th character, and then this is the first one, and this is the one that has an index of 2. So the first is 0, the second is 1, and the third is 2, which is a little bit confusing, but you'll get used to it. So let's just say I just wanted to know the first letter of the name of the person. So I would actually put name 0. And let's just say that I type in, where's my name? Let's just say my name is Bill. And it'll just return B, which is quite fun. And you can also do a variety of things like this. So let's say I wanted everything except the first letter. I wanted everything from the second letter onward. I could actually do 1, and then I could do colon. And the colon just represents I'm going to do 1 to a certain index. So since I don't add anything after the colon, it just means I take it starting from the second letter, and I take everything afterwards. So that should achieve the exact opposite effect. So if I say my name is Bill, I can save this again. Dang. If I type my name is Bill, it'll just write ill. And I could also specify where I want this to end. So if I want this to end at the fourth character, I don't want to include the fourth character and anything after the fourth character. I could also just say, well, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to take everything from 1 to 3, not including 3. And if I just save that, what is your name? Bill. And I'll just type in IL. And you can also do that. If you ignore the beginning, it just takes BIL. And something about strings is that it also has certain functions associated with it. So let's just say instead of saying hello, Leo, I wanted it to scream the word Leo. I wanted it to print Leo in all uppercase. So something that I could do is after I go after the name variable, and I could click dot upper, and this just converts everything to uppercase. So I save the file and run this again. What is your name? Leo. And I'll say hello, Leo in all uppercase. And you could also do lower to make everything lowercase. And there are many, many, many more things that you can do, but that is up to you to discover. And I'll just leave all that learning to you because I can't cover all of that. There are way too many functions in Python. But since we know how to make basic interactions with Python, sometimes there will be certain pieces of code that you will want to reuse. And here is when functions come in. So functions are used when you want to package up certain pieces of code and reuse them. So let's just say instead of doing, let's just say that function that I had here. So I wanted to reuse this code perhaps. Then what I could do is I could wrap it into a function. And how we define a function is actually write in def. So this just means define. And then we do the name of the function. So I'll call this function ask for name. And then I could put in a parentheses to signify that this function right now takes in no arguments. And then to signify that I'm ending the name of the function, I would do a colon. And then, as I said before, how we represent that something is in something else in Python is that we would add indents. So here I would just highlight these two, I click tab. And now Python knows that name equals input and print hello name is wrapped in this function for ask for name. And because this is just a function definition, it actually doesn't do anything because we're just telling the program that this is what ask for name does. We don't actually tell it to do this. So how we would actually call a function is we could go ask for name, and then to call the function, we would just put the parentheses around it again. And then we save it. It should ask for the name, for Leo, say hello Leo. If I wanted to use this again, say I wanted to ask for the name 3 times, I'll just copy the function 3 times instead of copying all this code. And that'll become extremely useful when your functions become really, really long. And if I just do that, it should ask for my name several times. So I can say Alice, Bob, and Kathy. And then I'll just ask 3 times. And something else that you could also do in your functions is you can pass in values called parameters. And you can also make it return values called, well, return values. So let's say I wanted a function that whenever I pass in a name, I wanted to add the word hello before it, and I wanted to return hello name as its value. So I could say def
say hello, and then I could say name, and then I can make it return hello plus name. And just to make sure that I don't mix these two up, I'm actually going to call this p underscore name. So if I say print, say hello, I can actually chain functions like this. And I pass in the parameter as, I don't know, Anthony. And then when I click print, and when it prints, it'll actually say hello Anthony because I'm calling the function say hello. I'm saying that in this specific case, p underscore name, the value of p underscore name is Anthony. And what it does is that it returns the value hello plus the name of Anthony. So it returns hello Anthony, and it just tells print to say print hello Anthony. So do we have any questions so far? Oh, okay. So Anthony, you want formatted strings? Well, I can go over that right after. But now that we know how to declare functions, well, this seems pretty useless because we're just doing basic things. But Python, it gets a little bit more complicated when we add conditional statements. So instead of running code all the time, we can say if this certain condition is satisfied, we run this set of code. And if this condition is not satisfied, we run this other set of code. So that is actually done through an if statement. And how you write an if statement is you write if, and then you would actually write the condition here. So let's just say, and the condition needs to be a Boolean value. So let's just say we say if 1 equals to 2, and then we do the colon again, and just represent that stuff is inside this if, we would use an indent. So tab, we write print. Okay, actually, no, I forgot. There's 2 equal signs. Print 1 is equal to 2. So if we run this, we can see that nothing happens because it only runs this print function if 1 is equal to 2, but 1 is clearly not equal to 2, so it doesn't run this print function. And something that I could do is, okay, if 1 equals to 2, run this function, but in all other cases, if it's not, then we can run this other function. And what we can do is we can do an else statement. So we can say if 1 equals to 2, then we print 1 is equal to 2, or else we print 1 is not equal to 2. So if we just print that, we can see that because 1 is not equal to 2, this condition fails. It just gets passed on to the else, and it prints 1 is not equal to 2. And starting from here, we can make pretty interesting interactions. So let's just say that name is input. And again, what is your name? And then \n, just to say new line. If my name is, let's say, Leo, then I make it say something. If my name is Leo, then it says, hi, Leo. I would add print around that. And else, we make it say, wait, you're not Leo. So then if I just run this function again, I'll say, what is your name? Let's just say I take Bob. My name is Bob. And it's going to go through this. It's gonna say, okay, is this name Leo? No. It's gonna pass it on to the next one. It's say else. It's gonna say, wait, you're not Leo. And that's gonna be what is printed. But it would kind of suck if you could only do if else statements. It would be better if you could also say, well, if the name is Leo, do this. But if the name is, let's say, Anthony, do something else. Otherwise, do this third thing. So here we introduce something called elif. And what elif just stands for is basically, it just stands for else if. It's just saying, if the condition up top is not successful, else, and then we write an if again, basically, do this. So let's say elif name equals to Bob, print hello, Bob. And we can also just use this here, which just makes this a little more complicated. So right now, if I write Leo, I'll say hello, hi, Leo. If I type Bob, they'll say hello, Bob. But if I type something different like Alice, they'll say, wait, you're not Leo, you're Alice. That would actually add something there. So any questions about if statements? Does Python have a switch statement? The answer is no, which is kind of sad if you ask me. But no, Python actually does not have an if statement. So, sorry, it does not have a switch statement. Wait, it does? Oh, that's okay, because it's new. That checks out because I searched it up yesterday. And then it said no. And when I learned it, the answer was also no. I guess that changed. Yeah, so Python has no parentheses, and that's what makes it a lot easier to learn for most people. And Anthony says, I feel like F strings are better than just adding everything together. And the answer is yes, it is, because if you just like add this bunch of stuff, it's a little bit weird. So another way you could do it is actually, you could say format. And then I could say this. Sorry. Let me just check this. Yeah, pretty sure you would just do this format and then name. Let's try that. Okay, wrong place. You would actually do this dot format, I think. Yeah, you would do the string dot format. And how we would tell is you can just add curly brackets around the place where you would normally want the value. So wait, you're not Leo, you're, and this just tells, okay, there's a blank value here that we're going to fill in with a variable. And the variable here happens to be name. So wait, you're not Leo, you're blank. I'm going to fill in that blank with the name. So that should return, wait. Let me just check actually. Valid format specifier. Did I forget how to use format? This is embarrassing. Let's try that again. Oh, okay. Then I just needed to put that into a variable and then call it from the variable instead of just directly calling it from the string. I'm sorry. So here I could just say, wait, you're not Leo, you're blank. And then I could just format that sentence and say, okay, instead of saying the blank here, I'm going to insert the name variable. And that is something that we can do as well. Any questions about that? Yes, that is also a good way to do it. So that's a good point. Another way to do formatted strings is you can also just do, instead of doing it like that, you could just insert them like F, and then you would actually use the backtick, I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait. No, you just use the parentheses, and then you could say, this is being difficult. Wait, your, and then I could just say name. And then that also just makes stuff a lot easier. Yep. So that is a much easier way of doing format. I did not learn that. Thank you. I knew that existed in like C. Did not know that existed here. Yep. But let's just say instead of having a single value, I wanted a list of values. I wanted to store, like, let's just say I want, instead of one number, I want many different numbers. And I don't want to define a variable for every one of them. Then something I can do is I could use lists. So how I would define lists is you would declare it the same way as a variable. So let's say instead of name, I want names. And then I would use the square bracket, and then I can input multiple in here. So I could do Leo, Alice, Bob, Charlie, and that would just store a list of names. And you could actually add to this list of names by doing names.append, and that just adds another name to the end. Let's say I want to add David to the end. But also, let's say that I didn't want David, I could do names.pop, and that basically just gets rid of whatever is last in that list. And let's just say instead of having David at the last place, I wanted David as my first. I could also do .insert, and I would say where I want this. So I want it at as the first thing. So I'd say insert at 0, which is the first value. And I want to insert the value of David. And then let's say I want to delete a specific name. So I want to delete the name Alice, but I don't know where it is specifically. Also, just write remove. And then I could say Alice. And if I just print the names, and here we can see that now I added David at the beginning and I removed Alice. So that's just something fun to play with. But let's just say instead of printing all the names, I wanted to print hello, Leo, hello, Alice, hello, Bob, hello, Charlie. Or maybe, hello, David as well. So what we can actually do is we could use a for loop or any sort of loop, really. So a loop is what you would use is when you want something to repeat or when you want to loop through each value in a list. And there's two types of loops that I will introduce to you right now. There's the while loop. And what the while loop does is, it's not supposed to be capitalized, is if the condition is satisfied. So let's just say while, so let's just say that right now, number is equal to 0. And while number is smaller than 10, we add 1. We add to the number. So here's just a quick way to write number equals number plus 1. We could just write plus equals 1. And then let's just say we print the number. And basically what this means is while the number is less than 10, every time this condition is true, we add 1 to the number, we print the number, and then we run this condition again. So that means if I run this again, it should just go, wait, and save this file again. It should just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But there's also an easier way to do this. Instead of writing a while loop every time, you could actually use a for loop. A for loop basically loops a set amount of times. So here I could write for, and how you would actually use this in Python, let's just for I in range, and let's just say 10, print I. And this should print it from 0 to 9, fairly certain. So let's just try that. And it prints it from 0 to 9. And what range basically means is that it creates a list. So range 10 is just equal to 0, 1, 2, blah, 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 and then all the way to 9. So it makes sure it starts at 0 again, and then it counts 10 items. And then this is what is in the list. And the for loop basically just goes through each value in that list. It says, okay, well, I begins as the first value. So I is 0, and we print 0. I is now 1, we print 1, blah, 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 blah. And you can also imagine that we could also do that for names, because names is also a list. So for I names, we say, I'm going to use the format string now. Hello. This. So now we would say, hello, David, because you added David here. Hello, Leo. Hello, Alice. Hello, Bob. And then hello, Charlie. And if you just wanted to know how I didn't get this to run, this is called a comment. You would comment, and a comment is basically just you want this to be in the code. You want somebody to read it, but you don't want the programming language to actually run it. And in Python, you would actually just do this with a hashtag. So any questions thus far? Nope. Is the hashtag a comment? Yes. So there's two ways to write comments in Python. Whoops. That is not supposed to be there. There's two ways to write comments in Python. You could either do it as a hashtag, or you could do it as a, if you wanted a long comment, you could actually use triple quotation marks. And everything in here is also a comment, except you can do this for multiple lines as opposed to just one. So everything in here is going to be a comment. Did that answer your question? Okay, cool. So this evidently makes, makes Python a lot more of a viable language. So let's quickly just take this time. Let's just build a small game. Are you guys familiar with the game Hangman? I think we probably all played it as children. Yes, sir. Well, okay, so then let's just say that we have a list of words. So let's say the list of words is Python, and the other is programming. Make this a lowercase actually. And code. Let's just say that those are the possible words that we could have. And we write word to yes is equal to, let's just say words and let's just say that let's search up the random function, random integer. So we could just do random range. Yeah, and here it would actually import random from random. I'm pretty sure if you just do range 1, 2, 1, let's just say a random range all the way from the length of the word, the list of words. So len words. And we can just check if this works. So we print the word to guess. And every time it should return something slightly different. You brush up on that Python. Jeez. Oh yeah, that's true. Import random. Yes, it's supposed to be a lock module. Yes. Thank you. So if I just do that, that should now, yeah, so that should now just return a random, something random from that. Yep, so now it just chooses a random number from 0 to 2, and that'll be our word to guess. So now, while, and then we can also just add a live system. So let's say we have 3 lives. So while lives is greater than 3, or we run a certain function. So let's just say while lives is greater than 3, we prompt, no, not prompt, sorry, input, guess a letter, and then \n. And so let's just say that the letter is equal to input guess letter \n. And we can also say if letter in word to guess. So basically just says if the letter is in the word we need to guess, let's just say we remove that letter. So we print that was correct. And then if, and then we can say else lives lives minus equals 1. So we just take one life if the word was guessed incorrectly, and we print that was incorrect. So let's just try that. So now we don't know, actually. Sorry, lives is greater than 0. You can say guess a letter, say P, that was incorrect. And then let's just guess like, I don't know, Q, that was incorrect, F, and then that will basically end the game because we guessed it 3 times wrong. We lost 3 lives. And, that ended the game. And easily you could imagine that with Python, you could add way more. You could say, hey, instead of having, when I guess a letter, I could remove it from that string just to make sure that, to say I already guessed it. But I'm just going to let you guys to imagine how you guys can make this game with the knowledge that you already have. I'm just going to go out of here. And here I'm just also going to introduce something else called dictionaries. So a dictionary is basically another type of variable or a value where you could have a key. So let's just say dictionary name is Bob. And you would actually use a comma here to denote that, okay, we're doing something new. We do age is 2. So now if we try to say print dictionary name, it'll return the value of Bob. And the dictionaries basically just match a name to a value, similar to how a normal dictionary matches a word to its meaning. And here, the word is the key and the meaning is the value. And we see that is reflected here. So basically you can use name to query the word Bob, to find the word Bob. And you may ask yourself, well, how is this different from a normal variable? We're basically just saying name maps to Bob. Well, you could imagine this as kind of a variable that holds subvariables in the way that we have dictionary, and inside dictionary, there's sort of this variable or key whose value is Bob. And you could also, let's say we can also add things to just dictionary. We could say dictionary food. You could say favorite food is equal to, I don't know, watermelon. And if we just try to do favorite food again, it will print out watermelon. So that's how you add something. You could also change it. So let's say instead of saying favorite food, we say their name is now Alice. So now if we print name, it shouldn't say Bob, it should say Alice. Yes. And something with the dictionary that you can also do is you can run dictionary.keys. And this basically just returns a list of possible keys. So here it would be name and age. And something else you can do is you can do values. So it would be return Bob and 2. Any questions so far? I'm guessing no questions then. Nope. Yep. Okay. So that is that. So now, well, that was all pretty easy. I know that I've made a few mistakes, but that's going to happen as you go along. I haven't coded in Python for like 4 months. So there's a lot of things that I've forgotten. And if you learn a lot of programming languages and don't code often with it, that's going to happen. And as a beginner, mistakes like that are also going to happen. So just stay patient, use Google, use the internet. You're going to find a solution, or just ask around. Like I know a lot of the participants actually solved a lot of the problems for me, which is not a good look on me, but it gives you a good idea of what coding will be like when you actually start doing it. There's going to be a lot of things that you get wrong the first time. You're going to go on Stack Overflow. You're going to live on Stack Overflow, or you're going to like ask the people who know how to code, and you're just going to say, "Hey, how's this going to work?" And they're going to look at you going like, "How do you not know how this works?" And they're going to tell the answer, and you're like, "Oh, well, that was new," or "Whoops, I forgot that." So that's going to happen 100% of the time. So just be patient is what I'm going to say to you. But okay, so that was decently simple. Let's just try to build something that is way, 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 way harder now. So let's just say, well, let's jump from this, oh, I barely know anything, here's a dictionary, to what if we tried to build a very simple speech to text app? And I'm gonna be honest, I made no preparation for this. And this is just kind of a demonstration of how powerful Python is and how powerful like the community that is built around it is. So if I just search like speech to text app with Python, I can literally just look at some links and I can just go into them. That's a list of sources. I don't need to look at that. And this is a lot of different stuff. This is also very long. You could just look for something that's shorter. So let's just say this. Okay, this is decently short. Hopefully. Yeah. So let's just say I wanted to build a speech to text app. You could actually just go online, find code, and here it says, okay, we need to install a library called PyAudio. And we could just do this. So pip is just Python's package manager, just like how npm is Node's package manager. And here we can just write pip install PyAudio. And here we'll actually download this package or this module. And something failed, actually. Let me just check. Okay, I think this package might be a little bit old. So py.install. Okay, then we can just try another tutorial then. So let's just say that this doesn't work. Well, that's okay. We can just go to another source. Let's keep going back. So here I would actually, instead of doing that, let's just try speech recognition. So pip install speech recognition. So now that works. And let's just say we just take this code and we just copy it. So here I would just go import library. And we just it. And I'm just going to give a breakdown. So here it will import this library as SR. So now when we ever do SR, we're using this library. And we just initialize the recognizer class, which just means that we set this up. And then with sr.audio file, so let's just say we don't actually want to use the audio file. How would I use the microphone here? So let's just see, is there a microphone? There is. So let's just say that using the microphone as the source, we listen to it. And here try except just means we try something, and if it doesn't work, we do this. So basically what this piece of code does is we import this library, we initialize it, and then we use the microphone as the source, and then we listen to it, and then we try to print the text, and then we try to print what it hears by using this Google speech recognition function. And if it doesn't work, we just print, sorry, run again. Let's just try this. And hopefully it works. Well, this is kind of sad because I need to install PyAudio for this. Turns out that didn't work. Anyone in the comments have any suggestions? This worked. I tried it last time, so this is kind of sad, actually. Yeah, probably. So I probably don't have that C library installed. Well, this is sad. Well, my example doesn't work. Okay, that is just insanely sad. This is a problem. Okay, here's a solution. Let's try that. If that still doesn't work, then I'm just going to give up this workshop because it is, unfortunately, we're unfortunately running out of time. Can I copy this at all? No, unfortunately, we cannot do that. So I don't think we can install Pi. I don't think I can install Pi Audio on my computer. Let it work. But hopefully you guys get the idea of how that was supposed to work. That was supposed to work, but it did not. And hopefully you guys don't run into that problem when you are making your projects. I certainly ran into this problem right now. But if you're looking for additional resources while you're learning Python, here's an assortment of additional resources that you can actually add to your repertoire. So what I use when I learn Python is I use W3 Schools. I use Free Code Camp, and I used CS50. But you could also check out other Learnathon22 workshops. Like we have this upcoming Python libraries workshop, and there's also past curious workshops that you can find on our YouTube channel. Okay, so it might be so the previous problem might be caused by a version problem. Okay, that checks out.